Recording. And we are. All right. So again, we are at the top of the hour. I want to be very conscious of your time. This is very important. And so I'm excited to share with you all the great stuff around A2P 10DLC. And so the title of this is Everything You Need to Know About A2P 10DLC. And before I get too deep, can you guys just drop a comment in chat? Can you see my screen okay? I've done a lot of webinars, and the worst thing about doing a webinar is not sharing your screen. Everyone can't see it. So just want to make sure we are good. All right, I can see. Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so the title of this is Everything You Need to Know About A2P 10DLC. I'm going to wrap it all up in a nice tidy bow so you can walk away from this and knowing exactly what to do or to not do. And this is a step-by-step guide to get a 99% open rate with text messaging. There's a whole reason why this whole A2P 10DLC exists, and we're going to dive into that. So I am joined with my co-founder. He said, you got to make sure you put CPO in there. And so I did. So CPO, Chief Product Officer, and CTO. And so Sergey is the man. I appreciate you for joining. Sergey is sort of that technical brain. And then I'm the messaging, the marketing, the product brain. And so we join forces. And as Sergey says, we have a good Venn diagram. So needless to say is all the great features, all the great product that you guys are seeing is because of Sergey and our amazing development team we have. Sergey heads all that, all your feedback that comes through, it's through Sergey and through our team. So he's going to be joining me, adding sort of my right man right here, my right side. So Sergey, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Excited about the webinar. Let's get started.
All right, let's do it. So what you are going to learn today, again, it's my goal, it's my mission to support you on this whole understanding of what A2P is, how you can navigate through it. And so really the first thing is what's the new rules for SMS text messaging, right? SMS, we're all using it. And so what are the rules? What is this all these new changes that are coming? What is A2P 10DLC? Don't worry, I'm going to get into what the abbreviations and the naming of all this stuff is. We're going to dive into that. So what exactly is it, right? What's the benefit? There's a reason that this is important. So what are the benefits for A2P 10DLC? What's the process for registration? Businesses that are messaging in the United States, they need to go through this process. We're going to dive into that and some deadline dates. This is really important. We have what I would consider plenty of time within the next couple of weeks to get what you need to get over to us and through that process. So we're going to dive into that, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. So again, if you do have questions, pop them in the Q&A section. You should see it in the Zoom bar. There's like chat and QA. Chats for chatter, QAs for, hey, I got a question. Can you answer that? So we're going to dive into that. All right. So let's get into it. So this is really a once in a decade tidal shift in how businesses message consumers. And this is not just something that, hey, it's, I've heard of regulation happening, for years around messaging, but this is one of those, like, this is a big deal. So we're going to dive into that. And again, it's just something that is necessary and needed for the industry. And so let's talk a little bit about the power of SMS. I think we all get it, right? I don't need to harp on this, but SMS gets a average open rate of about 98%, right? When you combine that or compare that to any other channel, SMS is the King Kong for engagement, right? So businesses that want to engage with contacts, engage with customers, engage with leads, SMS is that channel. 90% open that text message within the first 3 minutes. I've seen all sorts of stats from like 85% within the first 15 minutes. The point of that is like, oh, wow, people are going to actually open up your message. So if you really want to get something out there, SMS is the channel to do that. A 45% average response rate. If response is an issue for you and your business with other channels, SMS is that. And so there's high value in SMS as a channel to connect. There's really three things. You got email, you got calls, and you got SMS. Now, granted, there's a million other channels, but those are really the three main ones that you're going to connect your leads and customers. And so messaging isn't a nice to have anymore. It's really a prerequisite for success. And again, we've got calling, which isn't as successful as it once was. We have email, and then we have SMS as a channel. So as a business owner, you really want to take an omni-channel approach, and SMS can do that. Now, here's the big problem, right? Which is unwanted text messages decrease trust. How many of you guys, show of hands, drop it in the chat here. Have you ever gotten an unwanted text message? I got one today, right? We get them all the time. And so what this does is this is an erosion of trust. And the carriers realize that. They're like, man, we got to clean this up. Can you imagine if your Gmail account was just full of all sorts of pills? You wouldn't use it, right? Like you would not use that tool and that provider. And so they take extra care and effort to ensure the quality and integrity of Gmail. Well, the carriers want to do the same thing. Okay. Yeah, pre-election was insane. So unwanted text messages, they come from short codes, right? Or shared short codes in most cases. And they come from 10-digit phone numbers. So you probably get a text where it's got a whole long string of a link probably somewhere, and it's from a local number. And so the carriers realize, wow, because it's so easy to get a local number, well, then bad actors are going to take advantage of that. You know, when you have a shared short code, bad actors can hide behind that short code, which is used across tens of thousands of customers. And a bad actor can sort of send those messages through, and they really ruin it for the rest. The way I look at it is like, you've got shared hosting and somebody starts sending spam email on your web server. And then next thing you know, you can't send email, but you're sharing it. So here's the whole deal behind this. And so I'm going to talk about this a lot, which is the carriers want to know two things. They want to know who you are, right? As a brand, as an individual, and then also as a brand and as a company. And they also want to know, what are you sending? Right now, they don't know you for a company and who you are, right? Like who's sending those text messages, what company or what individual, and then what's the type of content you're sending. You know, they want to know those two things to keep that integrity around the channel. So what is A2P 10DLC? What it means is application to person. And so this is really any text message sent from any software to a consumer. And so what this means, before there was a P2P or P2P texting, but the carriers have sort of now blanketed and said, hey, look, every text message that's sent across any software, that's A2P. It's application to person. Therefore, it has to abide by these rules and regulations. And then the 10DLC just stands for 10-digit long code, right? So a local number like this, 561-878, your number you have on sales message is considered a 10-digit long code. There's other types of numbers. We'll get into that. So sort of what I talked about with email is, you know, you have your ESPs. So you've got Yahoo and the Gmails and Hotmail and AOL, and, you know, they all have their sort of providers and the way they filter and spam and do all that sort of stuff. Some are better than others. And then similar to that, you have your mobile carriers. So like the Gmails of the world are really on the email side, and you have AT&T and Sprint and Verizon that are on the mobile side, right? These are the quote unquote aggregate, you know, these are the platforms from which you can deliver text messages, right? So if we look at this, right, we've got email, we've got SMS, so ESPs, right? Well, the ESPs are Gmail and Yahoo, the carriers are AT&T, right? We've got spam and blacklisting on email. We've got filtering and blacklisting that happens at the carrier level from text messages. We've got unsubscribes, and we've got unsubscribes as well, which keep you in compliance for sending text messages, right? Sales Message has those features. You have certain laws that are like can spam. And in the SMS world, we have TCPA, CTIA, all these acronyms for regulation, right? Who can send text messages? How can you get them delivered? You know, all of that legalese around messaging, at least in the United States, right? You have DKIM, SPF records. This is all in the authentication of like, hey, that's that company sending email. Well, 10DLC is essentially what the other side of DKIM is, which is the authentication of your messages. Who are you and what are you sending? And so before, this was sort of a black hole. Well, now 10DLC fits this little area. Does that make sense? All right. Hopefully I'm not getting a little too technical here, but at the end of the day is they just want to know who you are. So what are the types of numbers, right? We've got short codes, which is the 5-digit number. You get those typically with marketing messages. You've got toll-free numbers, which are 888, 866. You've got 10-digit long codes. And 10-digit long codes, right? You can see on the right side, there really is not information that the carriers know. But if you get a short code, guess what? We take you through a process. Our team, like David and Alex, will walk you through how do we get your short code provisioned? We got to know the brand and the use case and the consent. And there's a whole process. Take 8 to 12 weeks to get a short code, right? They've actually simplified that, but there's a whole process to get a short code even provisioned. Toll free, similar to that. You can get a number, but to go through, it's optional to get sort of approval. 10DLC, they never had that. Well, now they do, right? And so it's the carriers understanding who you are and what are you sending. And it's mandatory, right? Short code mandatory, toll-free number optional, 10-digit long code mandatory. Everybody has to do it. So which numbers require 10DLC? You might be asking that question. So short code, nope, you don't need to do it. Toll-free number, nope, you don't need to do it. However, if you have toll-free numbers mixed with local numbers, you got to do it, right? So if you have local numbers, which is in the most case for all sales message customers, there's a handful that maybe just use landline numbers. You don't need to do this. So if you have a landline number, well, you don't need to do 10 DLC. Sergey, is that correct? Just so we understand sort of the track on that.
That's exactly right. Nothing but local numbers are subject to 10 DLC rules, and this is exact reflection of it.
Awesome, cool, and that's it. So if you have landlines and that's all you got, cool, you can skip this. However, if you ever go to acquire another local number on the sales message platform, those are considered 10 DLC. Those are local numbers. Now, if you just went straight toll-free numbers, you don't have to go through this process, or at least you're not filtered in a way. So what are the benefits, right? There's a lot of things around this, but what's the benefits of 10 DLC? We understand why they're doing it, but how are they really going to help you as a business by going through this process? Well, one is improved deliverability. How many of you have had carrier filtering, right? Like we all have. Maybe you're sending messages and you're like, why didn't that message go through? Well, similar to the way email providers provide filtering and spam traps, the carriers do the same thing. And the reason they set a lot of that stuff up is because they're like, whoa, this is a brand new number, never sent any text messages to that person, and it includes a link. Whoa, that's a little fishy and it looks sort of spammy. Let's block it. However, when you go through this 10 DLC process, they're going to put you into a separate pipe. Call it an approval pipe, right? Hey, I'm in this approval pipe. I can start to see better deliverability of my messaging, right? So specific SMS routes for approved businesses. Number two is increase throughput and speed, right? So faster texting. Very quickly, you've got 1 SMS per second on local. You've got up to 3 SMS per second on toll free. And then if you're on a short code, you can send up to 100 text messages a second. That's the way it's always been. However, I'm going to show you how you can get more throughput. And so lower costs as well. So if you want to do high volume messaging, traditionally before you'd have to get a short code. Well, now you don't have to spend thousands of dollars, wait 6 to 12 weeks to get a short code. You can do high volume sort of messaging on 10 DLC. All right, so requirements, first of all, caveat, this is only for SMS traffic, meaning if you are only Canadian, which right now sales message serves US and Canada, if you're only sending text messages to and from Canadian numbers, this doesn't apply to you. However, if you're sending messages in the United States to other US numbers, 10 DLC is a requirement for that. We can get into some of that. Maybe you have a question. If you do, let us know. So again, they want to know who you are and what you are sending. Sergey, let me stop there. Anything you wish to talk about here?
No, I think, Chris, I think there are a couple of things that's worth reiterating. This is not an optional thing. This is something that everybody must do. So this is not the mandate by by sales message, this is really something that the entire industry is moving to. And from our perspective, even though it's inconvenient, even though it's laborious, this is what's going to keep the field clean, and all the deliverability rates that you are alluding to, they're going to remain high. It's just, so this is it's a good thing, even though it's a complicated thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the complication, trust me, on the back end, there's a lot of magic happening behind the scenes, but we made it so simple for everybody to register. So, so let's get into really these two packages. And so when you think of package, it's not like sales messages creating this package. This is sort of an industry term for like the path you take. And so I was like, you know what, let me make some icons to make it easy. So you're going to be once you go through this, we've got the package icon for starter, and then we've got the rocket icon for standard. So how do we determine what package we are on? Very simple. Okay. So which package is for me? This is a simple flow chart. And do you have or plan on having 5 or more local numbers, right? If your answer is yes, you are standard package. And we're going to get into the details of what that is. If you don't have 5 or more numbers, you go in the no path. And then the next question is, hey, are you sending or plan on sending more than 3,000 messages per day from local numbers? If your answer is no, well, then you go into the starter package, right? So if you have 5 or more numbers, or 5 or more local numbers, or plan on having 5 or more, you'll have to register. And it's a requirement from the carriers to register for standard. If you answer no to those, your starter package. So I'm going to do a quick poll here. I'm going to get fancy. So I just popped up a poll. Let me know, what package do you fall under, right? Are you starter? Are you standard? Are you not sure? If you're not sure, go ahead and post a question or post in chat. David, our team's here to support you. And maybe you don't know how many messages you're sending. You don't know how many numbers you currently have on your sales message account. The way to check how many numbers you have is if you go to settings, and then if you go to, you've got members and you got inboxes, and you can sort of add that up. If you've got more than 5, then you're going to need that. But again, our team's here to help you out. If you don't know, then just ask a question. Someone will reach out to you and we can sort of put you down that path. So the good news is, so I'm going to end this poll right now. Thank you, everybody. We got a good amount of people that filled that out. If you haven't, I'm going to shut this off in 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. There we go. So I'm going to share those results with everybody. So it looks like starter package about 49%, standard 32%, and then there's about 20% of people that are not sure. Don't worry about it. We are here to support you to make that decision. Most likely you're going to fall under the standard or the starter package. And when I say package, we have nothing to sell. So this isn't something we're going to upgrade you or upsell you into. This is just part of the phase you get. All right. So again, starter package, 5 or less local numbers, right? Or you're sending more than 3,000 messages per day. That's the starter. And so here is the registration if you fall under the starter package, right? So the 49% of you, good news, you don't have to do anything. We already did that for you. In fact, if you go into your account, you will see that this has already been done for you. So the good news is we've already registered you for free. There's no cost for the starter package, right? And so you can go into your account. In fact, let me see what that looks like. I'll show you in a second. I think we got a slide there. So the standard package, right? Again, more than 5 local numbers, or you're sending more than 3,000 messages per day, you fall under the standard package, right? So if you know your starter, great. If you know your standard, it's good to understand both of these. And so we're going to dive into that. So here is what these options look like, right? So throughput on a starter package, you'll get 1 to 2 MPS, which is messages per second, right? Which in most cases is totally fine, right? You're sending out conversational messages. If you're in the standard package, again, you go through this approval process, and then you can send between 3 or 180 messages per second. 100 messages per second is a lot. 20 messages per second is a lot, right? So, but either way, you get this sort of throughput option. Now, there are daily message limits. So the carriers are sort of putting a daily message limit of 3,000 per day for the starter package. In most cases, most people aren't sending 3,000 messages per day, so not to worry about that. Standard package, there's actually a daily limit based on a trust score, which we'll get into. Local phone number limit 5. You can have up to 10,000 local numbers on the standard package. And don't worry, we're going to send all this stuff out. So if you have any questions around what do I do, all that stuff, we have got you covered. We got great resources to point you in the right direction. The brand registration is individual. So what we send to the carriers is basically the individual information. I'll go into that. And then for the standard, there's a business, an EIN number is required, or a tax ID number is required. There's a lot of verification that happens from the carrier level around who that company is. We'll dive into more of that. Registration for starter is instant. We do it automatically for you. The registration for standard package is you got to register over in sales message. We're going to walk through that. Registration fees, it's free for starter. Everybody who starts on sales message automatically gets pushed into starter. So that registration is free. And then to go through the standard, there are some fees. We're going to cover all that, brand and carrier fees. Okay, so registering your business, right? So the starter package, not that you need to know this information, but obviously we want to be as transparent as possible in this process. All right, can you guys see my screen? Just want to make sure. All good? Yep, perfect. Okay, so the starter package, again, when you create a sales message account, we automatically push you into the starter package, and the carriers are requesting this information. So first name, last name, email, billing address, and phone number. Sergey has done some amazing magic. Sergey, if you want to maybe speak to how we're sort of doing this or treating this, love to hear your thoughts on that.
All right, Chris, let's see what's on our next slide. Maybe we'll show the actual example. Okay, so a couple of things to reiterate what Chris already mentioned. For everyone who's our customer, or you just started trialing sales message, you already achieved a base level of compliance, because we had registered on your behalf. We registered you for the starter package. And if you go into the administrative section of your account, you should be able to see your status is approved. And again, which is the very few accounts that got some kind of error, this is what you should be able to see. Now, we're aware of any and all issues that are occurring with any of the account registrations, so you don't even need to alert us. We're doing this on your behalf. If we need to re-register it or rerun the process, we're actually doing it without you prompting us. Now, our customers fall into 2 buckets, or 2.5 buckets, I would say. The bucket number 1, it's the starter package, and there is nothing really for you to do. Bucket number 2, you are actually exceeding either on a daily basis, you're exceeding 3,000 messages, or you have more than 5 numbers. If that's the case, this is the banner that you're going to see. You're going to see the banner to prompting you to click on the registration link and bring you to the account. And you will see register for standard button you see at the bottom of the screen. Next screen, Chris. Chris?
Yep. Yeah. So this is like, on the starter, it shows approved and
okay. Sorry, that already switched. All right, cool. So if this is your starter screen, you don't see a registration button, so there's nothing to confuse you there. So if you don't see any alerts or anything like that, that basically means you're in full compliance and your limits have not been exceeded. Next. All right, so the standard package registration. So this is the information that's going to be required. Now, standard package, we try to make it as simple as possible for the registration purposes, but there's still quite a few steps to go through. So let's just detail those out. Even though there's a lot of information that's been asked, it's fairly straightforward. So once you have, Chris, if you can go to next screen. So this is what's going to happen once you click the button and start the registration process. You're going to see that it's already in progress. And just on the first step, we're asking some general information. Next screen, Chris. Business information is going to be asked on the next screen. Next, Chris. All right, so this is just some business information that needs to be communicated, and moving to points of for the contact.
Let me talk about a couple of things on here as well, Sergey, which is in this section, we mentioned the EIN number. So, a tax ID, obviously here in the United States, it's a tax ID number. And so that tax ID is what the carriers are sort of looking up. And so they want to make sure that, this is a business. And so if you don't have a tax ID number, then that will probably cause some sort of failure to be approved. And so, it says business registration number. You can also put in a DUNS number. I believe DUNS number is the other option. So if you have a Dun & Bradstreet number, which is like nobody has that, but if you got it, you can use it. If you have an EIN, well, then you'll put your EIN in here. And this is just the information that we are passing to the carriers, creates a profile, and then it goes through submission. So there's really two parts. There's brand registration, which is these steps. And then there is the campaign registration. So it's a super simple process. Should take you a couple minutes. And Sergey, I'll pass it to you here.
Chris, thank you for reiterating that. Once you put your business information, we'll help you determine your DUNS number, your EIN number, but you absolutely need to verify that and just to make sure it's correct. And again, the reason we're harping on this is because the entire process should be fairly seamless. You should be able to almost instantaneously, once you fill it out, you should be able to get your trust score, which is we're going to cover a little later, and you should get a status, which will alert you to exactly what's happening. However, if you don't provide the correct information, the entire process could take up to 7 days, with on average being 2 to 3 days if the information is incorrect. So please fill it out to the best of your ability as accurately as you possibly can. So up to this point, you could see on the step number 3, you had provided the officials for the business representatives. And now you have registered. At this point, you already registered your business. And now it's the time to declare your campaign, right? So this is the next major step that you need to do. Next screen, Chris. So at this point, you need to identify your use case and declare your campaign. Now, what are the campaigns? Basically, you need to tell us what exactly are you using. Are you using sales messaging for? What are you texting? What is your specific case? What is your business? And what exactly you're going to do? Now, this is going to determine the cost, and it's also going to determine what throughput for your campaign is you're going to get. And we give you a couple of examples of there is a drop down that you could select from, and we give you a couple of examples of the use cases that you could specify. Again, you should have that. And these are the different campaign types between higher education and marketing, and mixed and polling and voting. So these are the by and large, you should fall within some kind of category on this list. And if you don't, please let us know, and we'll add it in.
Yep. Yeah. And so, if you get here, and I think, I was telling Sergey, I'm like, man, people, they don't know what to choose, right? And so these use cases, it's not so much around choosing the wrong thing. It's choosing something that the majority of your messaging is going to be used for, right? So account notifications, not a lot of folks are really going to use that, right? We're not really a notifications platform. Customer care. So if you're using this for like customer support, account management, customer interaction, that's that. Delivery notifications, probably not a use case on sales message. Like it's not like, hey, your tracking number is that Most people aren't using that for sales message. Higher education, so if you're college or university, it's probably the one that you'll want to choose. Marketing, right? If you're using it for promotions or limited offers, I wouldn't select this if like the majority of your messaging is conversational. And then, yeah, we do a little bit of marketing messages. You'd fall under that mixed category. So I would say, if you're looking at this and you're like, marketing is probably, and we'll get into like risk factors on what the carriers look at, but marketing is sort of like, they don't like it so much. And so if you're using it just for that, yes, like that's the category you should choose, but also understand that sales message is not just, a messaging platform like that. So mixed is again, sort of, customer, it's a mix of sort of all these things. That's a good category to choose. Polling and voting. We don't have polls or votes in sales message, not yet. Ta-da. But we're getting there. And so it's probably not a category you choose. Public service announcement, maybe your government agency or something like that. That would be that audience. So those are the options. There's always more that are coming up. There's special cases, but that gives you a good sort of example on which one to choose. Again, I would say most people are probably going to choose either mixed or customer care. Totally depends on your business, but that would be my high level understanding on most of our users. And then here's just a couple sample messages. So when you're going through the process for registration, they're like, well, again, what do they want to know? They want to know who you are and what types of messages are you sending. So a great way to just pull up a message is like, go to some of your chats and just be like, oh, well, here's a typical message that I send a lot. That's a great sample message. So just go to your chat, see which messages, are sort of you're sending a lot. That becomes your sample messages. Here's just some ones that, we have in here. These are not by any means like vetted by the carriers. So it's not like these messages, you can just copy paste and then you'll get like great approval. So these are just some examples, but again, best thing is just go to your account, take a look at it, and see what you're sending and pop that in a sample message there. And then Sergey, I'll let you wrap it up, baby.
And once you have, again, the steps 1, 2, and 3, you could think of them as basically just registering your business, and then campaign registration is on step 4. And once you have completed all that, you're basically ready to accept terms and conditions, and you're at the end of the process. So by this time, again, majority of our customers, we've seen filling out this form. It takes somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes, assuming you have most of the information is to go through. Again, laborious, but not something that should take you hours and hours and hours. So again, within 5 to 10 minutes, you should be able to get to the very end of it.
Yep. Yeah, it takes a couple minutes. Now, all of this, what this comes down to is the trust score. In fact, let me show this slide because it paints this picture here. So the 10DLC trust score, this is sort of like the reason for doing this. Yes, we now have messaging scores, just like we're getting other scores out there, right? So we've got 10DLC trust scores. So you fill this business registration. This processes through what's called a campaign registry. Campaign registry looks at all this information. It's an algorithm. I don't have any influence over it. I wish I did. And they spit out a score and go, here you go. Here's your score. And that's what it looks like right here. So this is, you can see standard package. It's been approved. And then your trust score is a 46. We're going to have some other help information here. So you maybe want to like, well, what does that mean? We're going to have some links that will show you what that means. So if you're seeing that now and you're like, well, I don't know what that means. If you go to help.salesmessage.com, you can see our 10DLC articles on that. And so here's what it means. Again, this is represented in one of our articles. And so you get a trust score, right? So starting at the top, right, which is really the highest score, think of it like a credit score for your messaging. You've got high performance, right? You've got messages per second up to 180. You've got, 66 through 85 is your upper mid. You get 30 NPS a second. And let me just say 30 messages a second is a lot of messages, right? 30 messages times, and that's a second. 30 times 60 is what, 18,000, 1,800? I don't know. I'm really bad at that. So anyhow, it's a lot of messages that you can really push out very quickly. All right, 26 through 65 is 3 messages per second. Even that's pretty good. And then you have the low, which is 2.2. And so again, that trust score gives you the throughput. And there's the packages. In fact, I think, let me get to, I think there might be another slide in here. Yeah.
Chris, before you're gonna do that, so just a quick word about the trust score you're gonna get. It's easy, and especially because Chris compared it to your credit score, meaning that if it's lower, it's bad. If it's higher, it's better. But it's not necessarily how you should think of it. Lower doesn't mean worse. It's a combination of your business information and the use case you have provided. So basically, some of the scoring that carriers give you is based on the information that you gave. So it's not, don't think of it as good or bad. Think of it as, well, this is consistent with the information I have provided. Now, if you provided the information that's erroneous and you need to fix it somehow, then come back to us, and there's a dispute process that you could go through. But again, as Chris mentioned, some of the messaging throughputs is quite high, and I would encourage you to think about it in terms of, well, if I need to dispute this because I want it higher, there's a cost associated with it, and there's an effort. Just think about if you really need it, and if you truly provided the information that it was not consistent with what your true use case is, then certainly come back to us and we'll help you.
Yeah, yeah, and we actually have a question on that too. We'll get to. Cool. So once you understand your trust score, and it's fairly instant, you know, once you go through that process, I believe it's somewhat instant within a couple of minutes, but up to what, 24 hours is it, Sergey?
It actually, so if the information you provided is inconsistent and it takes quite a long time, it could be 24, 48 hours, but the true SLA could take up to a week. On average, it should be within minutes. If it takes longer, don't think that something is broken. It could be 1 or 2 hours. But again, if the information is incorrect, it could take much longer.
Right. Yeah. And maybe, and we'll get to it too, but maybe you submitted it, maybe it's still in progress. Just reach out to our team. This is all fairly new for us and everybody else. And so might be some sort of lag. Also, if it fails too, just get in touch with our support team and we can troubleshoot through that. Usually it's just one sort of piece of information that's missing or incorrect or invalid that we need to do that. So the big question here is like, great, this is all awesome, Chris, but like, what's the cost, right? So again, if you're on the starter package, well, then there is no cost to that. And when I say cost, these costs, we don't make any money off of this. So like, it's not like, hey, we're going to charge you this and we're going to mark it up. There is no markup. These are the carrier fees. Google it, go look at all. This is the standard raw retail or wholesale rate for carrier fees. And so we don't charge anything. We don't make any money off of it. We pass those fees down to you so you can essentially message on the sales message platform. So if you fall under starter, cool, you're good. There's no fee. However, once you reach those limits, you'll then have to register to become standard. You'll go through that process we went through. And these are the fees associated. Again, these are the carrier fees. This is not sales message. Sergey's not buying lunch based off of this. So we've got brand registration, right? Which is a one-time fee of $44. Okay. And we've got a T-Mobile fee. This is a one-time T-Mobile fee. So if you look at the grand world of messaging in the US, we've got the big boys. We've got AT&T, you've got T-Mobile, who now owns Sprint. So T-Mobile and Sprint collectively own about 60 some odd% of the market. So they, like Apple, can enforce a fee. So it's a $50 fee that goes to T-Mobile, which again sort of encompasses T-Mobile and Sprint. All right, at least that's my understanding. Sergey, is that correct? Right?
That's exactly right, Chris. And one of the things that's also important here, if you register for standard, if you truly need standard and you're gonna want to register it for it, then $50 fee for the T-Mobile is waived until October 1st. So hurry up and do it if you truly need it.
That is very important. So if you don't want to pay that $50 T-Mobile fee, go right now and start this process. If you wait until the deadline, which we have a slide later, but the deadline is the end of the month. So September 30th at midnight, you got to get it through. If you get it on October 1st going forward, these are these sort of additional. So if you don't want to pay a T-Mobile fee, fill that registration out. If it comes back failed, let us know. We'll handle it and make sure that that gets complete by the end of the month, so you can save on that. So the one-time total fee is $94, right? 44 plus 50. And then you've got a monthly fee that, again, the carriers are applying to essentially your 10DLC plan, right? So that's between $2 and $10 a month, right? So the recurring fee is $2 to $10 a month. If you were to do the math, the low end's $96. So after you go through that whole process, what sales message does, and in fact, we actually, we don't submit this yet, but there is that fee. And so when you go through that whole registration, we essentially submit those costs on your credit card on file. And then obviously we then pay the carriers for that. So that's the fee to fully go through the registration. I'm sure you may have questions. If you do, please post it. David's doing a great job of responding to those answers. We're going to go through some of these questions too. I think it's great questions, everyone. So thank you for that. All right. So that is the brand registration, right? So 10DLC registration carrier fees. And then you've got the messaging carrier fees. Now, one thing to note too is there's always been messaging carrier fees. We just never told you about them, right? Because it doesn't matter to you guys. And so we've never talked about carrier fees because you just pay per message and that's it. And so, but what happens is those carrier fees, we assume those costs for you guys. And so these messaging fees are slowly sort of increasing. And the penalty for not registering, there are penalties, and therefore the cost of this. So one of the things that will happen fairly soon is we're just going to pass those fees down to you guys. And so if we look at this, so like single-use non-marketing fee, guess what? AT&T has a fee, and this is the fee from the carriers. There is no negotiation. This is the fee. We just pass this to our customers, right? So that's 0.002 for SMS, MMS, which is multimedia, that is sending pictures or images or GIFs, V cards, that has a higher fee of 0.0035, right? Mixed in marketing, 0.003 for MMS, inbound and outbound, by the way, 0.0035. And then you've got the boys over at T-Mobile and Sprint. They have their own fees. So again, these sort of main three companies make up the larger market. And so, if I send a message to Sergey and Sergey's on T-Mobile, and I'm registered, I'm going to pay that 0.003. Right now, if you're unregistered, meaning you're on Starter, which is already taken care of. We already took care of that for you. So everybody that is a sales message customer has applied for Starter. You already are approved. But if you don't register your standard package, then these unregistered penalties, which is AKA higher prices for messaging. So you can see here, the whole red line just shows you, hey, here's these fees. And again, these are not sales message fees. These are the carrier fees that is the cost for sending messaging. So you don't want to pay a higher fee. You want to register. So here is the deadline. The deadline really is September 30th at midnight. And so you register, you don't pay a penalty. You don't pay the fee. You'll actually, like Sergey said, is the $50 T-Mobile, that will be waived. So you don't have to pay that carrier fee. Did not register, you're going to pay a penalty, right? So what's the next steps? Well, if you are in the standard package, you sort of went through that little funnel there, you can take a look at your account. It's already been applied for, you're good, nothing to do there. And then the standard package, just make sure you register before October 31st or September 30th at midnight. You'll want to do that, right? So there is the deadline. And that's it. So hopefully that makes sense. We've got a bunch of great questions here. So don't leave yet, because I think a lot of people probably has some of these questions. Sergey, before we move on, is there anything you'd like to mention, dive into?
No, I think you're pretty much covered what needs to be done. Again, it gets a little nuanced with the standard package, so so bear with us. And if after the webinar you still have some questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make it, as Chris mentioned at the very beginning, want to make it as transparent as we possibly can. And we have accumulated a lot of knowledge on this, so we'd love to pass it along to you. So let's dive in.
All right. So again, if you have questions, please post them in chat. I see them in Q&A. And so we're going to run through probably the most important ones, and then your questions, we'll dive into that. I'm here to stay as long as possible to help make sure everyone understands where they're at. So again, if you're not unsure on which package you are, standard or starter, you're already registered for starter. So that's number one. But for standard, if you don't know which one, well, then go ahead, talk to our support team. We're here to help you and make that decision. And it really comes down to two things. Hey, do you have enough numbers? Are you sending high volume? If so, then standards for you. So is sales message the only company this affects? No, this affects everybody, any platform. So it's not like, oh, these sales message guys. No. Go anywhere. Everybody is doing it. They have to. And so it's not just sales message. It is an industry-wide change and update for the better, I believe. Which numbers require 10DLC registration? Local. If you have landline numbers, which one of the cool things of sales message, whether you know it or not, but we can text enable your existing landline. So if you're a doctor's office and you've had this number for 30 years, right? Well, we can text enable it. That keeps your calling with your telecom provider, and texting can then live on sales message. So if you didn't know that, well, now you know. And so we can text enable your landline numbers. You don't have to go through 10DLC because it's not considered a 10-digit long code or a 10DLC number. Toll free, you don't have to do it. Short code, you don't have to do it. But again, the moment you start adding local on there, after 5, you need standard. We already registered you for starter package, so you don't really need to do much. What countries does this affect? It's just the US. So messaging to US based phone numbers, that affects that. If you're just messaging to Canadian numbers, maybe you got a US number that you're sending messages to, it's best just to register. You know, if you plan on doing messaging, you know, in the US, well, you got to go through it, right? If you're just Canadian, then, you know, maybe you can get by with like just having unregistered traffic. You're just going to pay a higher fee, you know, if it's like a small amount, but it only affects in the US. So, Sergey.
All right, what happens if I don't register for 10DLC standard package? Okay, so there are going to be, starting October 1st, there are going to be some deliverability issues and additional carrier fees. We're including the matrix in our support article. You will see if you don't register, your carrier fees are going to be higher, and eventually there is going to be some penalties where your message throughput is going to go down, and then potentially things are going to get blocked. So and we're going to try to protect everybody by simply not allowing you to exceed. Now, this is why I was referring to some of our customers falling into 2.5 buckets, because some of our customers are already there. So we can't stop you. We can certainly alert you to the fact that you're about to send more than 3,000 messages. But if you have more numbers, we need to do something about it. So you do need to register.
Yep. Yeah. And if you don't, I mean, again, there's penalties, you're going to pay a higher price, but also deliverability, which is really, at the end of the day, you want your messages delivered. So they're going to treat that traffic not as whitelisted, they're going to treat it just like you're sending pills. So you don't want to be in that category, right? So that's the idea with that. I've applied, but my status shows as failed. What do I do? What does somebody do in that case?
Well, in that particular case, it could be an instance where you provided information that's not consistent, it's not correct. So the best thing to do is to reach out to us. So majority of the failed statuses are really non-recoverable. We need to try to understand what occurred. And we have actual error messages that are passed to us from the carriers, so we can try to figure it out with you. So if you see things failed, please don't hesitate to reach out to us because it's not going to correct itself.
Yep. Yeah, our team can help you out. And again, this is all fairly new, so our team is working hard. They have been working very hard to make sure that this is simple and easy, and all things work correctly. But truth be told, it's software. Stuff doesn't always work perfectly, and we'll help you out. So not a big deal. Can I dispute my trust score?
And trust score is certainly disputable. It's not guaranteed. Your trust score is going to go up, but this is something you could certainly dispute. Again, keep in mind there's a fee associated with it. And it's not always, sometimes you're absolutely okay with the score that you got and you just want it higher. Again, that's why I encouraged everybody not to think of it as high and low. The score is consistent. Now, within that consistency, you might be able to get it higher. If there is a form of dispute, and you could certainly do that. At this point, all this is one-off cases, and we're going to help you handle it.
Yep. Yeah. Very good. All right. What happens if I add my 6th phone number?
All right. So again, keep in mind that 6 is a magic number, but it's only applicable to local numbers. So don't count your toll-free number. Don't count your landline is in that number. Now, we're actively going to stop you from adding the 6 number. And what we're gonna do is, once you're gonna try to add the 6 number, we're gonna tell you need to register. If you're on starter, you need to register for the standard package. If you don't do that, we won't allow for you to do that. We won't allow for you to violate the rules. And again, this is for everyone's protection. So if you're gonna try to add the number, one thing you could do is swap out the numbers for some reason, but at the end of the day, you will have to register.
Yep. Yeah, and maybe you go to the settings and you're like, I don't see the registration for standard. Just reach out to our team. We set it up so if you don't need to register, then we don't give you that ability. But again, once you sort of reach these caps, then we reveal, hey, now you need to go through the standard account. However, if you want to just go ahead and register for standard, then our team, reach out to them. They can provide you a link, and that will take you through that standard process there. Sergey, can I apply for the standard package while on the starter package?
You absolutely can. As a matter of fact, you can have multiple packages existing at the same time. So don't think when you're on the starter package and if you're applying for standard, something is going to stop functioning. That is not the case. Things are going to function in parallel, and we are not going to switch you until we're 100% sure that things have succeeded on the standard package. So you certainly can apply for a standard package because you think you're not sending the high volume messages just yet, but you're planning to, and you're going to add more numbers. So if you're anticipating that and you're okay with the fees that come as part of the standard, please do it, and you certainly can.
Very cool. Sergey, can I downgrade from standard to starter?
So this is somewhat of a unique case. So you at the time that you thought that you were going to send something, but something didn't come together, and you're not going to do that. So you would like for those recurring fees to go away. Yes, that is possible. Currently, that's not an option we offer directly within the software. We don't want to confuse everybody, but on the back end, we have an option of doing that. So please reach out to support, and we could certainly switch you back to standard, back to starter.
Yep. All right. When does my daily limit reset? This is it's a good question. So Sergey.
This is a really good question, because what happens is we're calculating, and the carriers are calculating, the total number of messages, so really total number of message segments, to be precise. So don't think if you haven't reached 3,000 yet, you haven't broken the limit. You potentially could have if your message is multi-segment. So you have 3,000 messages or 3,000 message segments within the 24 hours. Now, this 24 hours is calculated from a UTC perspective. UTC is the standard time, and this is, you could see a table in front of you in terms of what that time is. So you could think of from an Eastern Standard Time, between from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock the next day PM, we're gonna count your 3,000 message segments. So within that, so if you're scheduled a broadcast that's going to exceed something, where you could just wait and send it again next day, as long as it doesn't exceed 3,000 messages, you're good.
Yep. Yeah, and this is, the carriers too, and I think there's some conversation around like, well, that's sort of weird. Why not just do it at midnight? So they may or may not change that up, but these are essentially the times in the US from like obviously 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. So it resets there. Cool. All right. How will I know I am about to exceed the starter package limits?
Again, another really good question. So the way you're gonna know is, so if you fall into a bucket where you already exceeded it, where you're gonna see a banner, and we're gonna send you an email that you have exceeded the limits. If you're about to exceed it, so in other words, you're still within the bounds of the starter, but you're about to exceed it, we'll send you an email as well to let you know. Now, if you're about to add a number that's beyond 5 that you already currently have, we're gonna let you know right away that that's what's going to happen. Or you're inviting a team member that potentially could exceed it, then the only option they're going to have is toll free, because toll free numbers don't fall under the 10DLC rules, and that's going to be the only option for selection.
Yep. Cool. Last question that we have, and then we'll dive into the Q&A questions here that we can dive into. Where will I see my 10DLC one-time and recurring fees?
Okay, so all the fees that are associated with 10DLC, you're going to see in the billing section. You're gonna be able to download a PDF detailing it out, and you're also going to be able to see in the billing info section administrative portion of your account. So you should be able to go there and basically see a complete breakdown and be completely apprised of what are those pass-through fees from 10DLC from carriers are going to be applied to your account or have been applied to your account.
Yep. Yeah. And this is still sort of a work in progress here, but you'll basically see sort of a line item on your subscription, and it will be, 10DLC registration, 10DLC carrier fees. So you'll be able to see exactly what those fees are. All right, cool. So we've got some other questions here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to just bring us live here. All right. So, hey, everybody. All right. Good question from Chad, and David answered this already, but if we use multiple systems, actually, sorry, let me take a look. There we go. All right. So if we use multiple systems for texting, do we have to register for 10DLC on each platform? Is registration per phone number or per business? Sergey, do you know the answer to that?
I do. So the registration is per business. Now, we have no way of looking up other carrier or other providers. So if we don't know about your registration. So if you're coming in, you have to go through this process again. If you use multiple platforms, unfortunately, you will have to do it multiple times. Chances are in the future, there's going to be a standard lookup, and we're going to be able to look up your status and where the registration fee is no longer going to apply. But currently, there isn't such a registry, or there is a registry, there is no lookup. So we don't know. Therefore, you have to go through this process.
Yeah, I think at some point the carriers realize that, like, why charge all these carrier fees per platform? Doesn't make any sense. So I'm sure they'll come up with something. Just right now, they don't have it. All right, so this is a good one. So say we have five users with numbers, and then one number that is used collectively. Does that put us at 6 numbers? Actually, you know what? Before I get to that, Chad's other question is registration per phone number or per business? The answer to that is per business. So it's not a per phone number thing. It's just, it's your brand, right? It's your campaign, and then that overlays all your numbers. So it's not a per number thing. It's just a company thing. And then a sort of use case is what they call it, a campaign use case. All right, Libby, thank you for the question. Say we have 5 users with numbers and then one number that is used collectively. Does that put us at the 6 numbers? What would you recommend to consolidate so we use the starter package? Sergey, do you have an answer for that one?
I do. So it's from a carrier's perspective, it's completely irrelevant how many users you have, as long as the number exceeds 5, and those are 5 local numbers. It's going to be applicable to for 10DLC rules. The only way to do this is basically consolidation of the numbers. So in other words, don't have individual numbers, have more shared inbox numbers. And under those shared inbox numbers, you should be able to stay within the bounds of 5, or choosing a toll-free number. Again, keep in mind the toll-free numbers are going to be deliverability and throughput is going to be much, much worse. So you need to then also analyze your traffic going through these numbers and making sure that the ones with the highest deliverability requirements are actually they're not toll-free numbers.
Yep, very cool. Ranjit, great question. What about Canadian companies? What business registration number do we use? And so again, if you are a Canadian company sending messages to US phone numbers, you have to register. Again, starter is already taken care of, but to register for standard, you have to register again if you want to be in compliance. And so the other option is if you don't have a tax EIN number, which is a United States thing, then it will be a DUNS number. I believe Dun and Bradstreet has a Canadian sort of offering as well. That then is the number that you would use for that. So hopefully that answers that. Let's see. Here we go. Joshua, thank you for the question. What's up, Josh? What if the use case is only one-to-one messaging between a sales rep and a prospect? Is that customer care? I have my opinion on that. What do you think, Sergey?
It does fall under customer care. Again, think of it in terms of exclusivity, right? So if you only exclusively use it for that purpose, then that's the choice you make. Now, the safest choice is mixed. Then you're not gonna, that is not open. It's basically very broad, and this is what you should choose. Choose a specific one when it's that and only that, and you're 100% sure.
Yeah, yeah. And really the use case too, it's like, you know, it's so early just to know like what the carriers would see that as. I mean, everything could essentially be customer care, right? But you know, also the sample type messages. So they want to make sure that that matches with sort of what you provided. And Trust Score again is that's the brand side of it, and then the use case you submit, then that gets into NPS and those sort of message throughput. All right, so how do we get stats on our sales message triggers? Looks like David provided that. Okay, Rachel or Raquel, are we safe to assume that if we already signed up with sales message, that the numbers we have are already compliant or registered, or do we have to still register? Again, the good news is when you create a sales message account, sales message like magic automatically registers you for the starter package, therefore making you quote unquote 10DLC compliant. Once you sort of move up the chain with adding more numbers or sending more messages, that's when you are required to register for standard. So in your case, you don't have to do anything, Rachel, simply because we already registered for you. So this webinar didn't have to exist unless you sort of meet those requirements there. Is there a page that shows what package we are on? Yes. If you go to your settings, you go to, I believe, organizational settings.
Organizational settings, and you will see it there.
Yep, you can see it over there. And this is a good one. Caleb, thank you for the question. He says, does the starter package expire? Sergey.
Starter package, it depends what you mean by expiration and in what sense. Starter package does not expire. It remains. And as a matter of fact, multiple packages can exist in parallel. And it just really depends which one are you using. And again, if we're automatically switching you between the starter and the standard package when you have registered, you have exceeded the limits, you have registered, you now successfully received a score, then we switch you. Nothing really expires.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, we've got tons of other questions. It looks like David, thank you, David. Appreciate all the follow-up with everybody.
Dave, again, you're a rock star. Thank you.
Yeah.
This way, Chris, to cut you off. Sure. Dave, you're a hero behind the scenes.
Yes, sir. I salute you, my friend. Cool. I think obviously we're over time. I want to thank you, thank everybody for joining us. Hopefully this gives you some good ammo to understand where you lay in this whole landscape. For most of you, you're already approved for starter. If you need to go through standard package, we have a whole process that will walk you through that. If you come up with any issues or any problems, we're here to help. Connect with us on live chat. You can go to our help center. We have documentation on 10DLC, what this stuff means, all of that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. One thing, also is like, you'll never make the wrong decision. So like if you go up against like, oh my God, what use case do I choose? Just choose one that, again, if you were to choose a safe route, choose mixed. But unless it falls under that direct category, then choose that. Most likely you're not doing delivery notifications. So that could just be an option you don't even look at. So not to fear, at the end of the day, your messages are still going to get delivered. You're still going to get approved. And you will just throughput really is the only thing that matters. But if you're not sending tens of thousands of messages, it may not apply to you. So don't be scared. Don't be fearful. There's really nothing to fear. Just go through it. If you get stuck, we're here to help you out. And if you have any questions, you know how to find us. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. I hope this was awesome. Sergey, final answer. What do we got?
Guys, thank you so much. And Chris, thank you for letting me be your sidekick. Awesome presentation. And guys, ton of information, a ton to know and a ton to ask about. And so please don't hesitate. We'd love to help.
Absolutely. On behalf of everybody here at Sales Message, thank you so much. Also, too, if there's any features you want to build, we love building features and cool stuff. Look at Sergey smiling from ear to ear. So let us know if there's something you really want. We love hearing your feedback. And if you thought this was awesome, here is one thing you can do right now. We would greatly appreciate it. Go to Google, type in Sales Message, and leave us a 5-star review, either on Google or on Capterra. We would really greatly appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much. That's all we live for, is just your feedback. So thank you so much. And
thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.